Do you have any questions before we get started?
No.
Okay. I
Am
have a
I am
lot
I
of
am
questions.
I am I supposed to have questions? I thought that was your role, but
That's my job. Yeah, I've got lots of
okay.
questions. Um, well, listen, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the show. I will say this is a very unique episode for me
Mm,
because usually I have my friends on the show or I have people in the fly fishing industry, people I know their history, I know all the ins, I know what I
mhm.
should and shouldn't ask. But with you, sigh, politics. Now we're going to talk about fishing, obviously.
Yeah, that's
I,
where
I
I'm at. But I will say this. So when I was doing podcasts and so on and so forth, uh, my wife was saying, "Oh, you got to get an April Volpe. You got to get an April Volpe. She follows you." So you have a follower in the house. She also likes to fly fish, and she follows you. I think she also follows you on Instagram or something like that. So
got it. Well,
that's how that's the route to April.
that would explain it. And that's my first question is why? Because your team reached out, and I know that you'd been on Tom Rosenbauer's show. I listened to that, by the way. It was
Yeah.
excellent. But I was thinking, why? What do you want from me? But I'm Canadian, I'm Australian. My audience, well, I guess they're American, but
That's kind of cynical. Well,
I'm
maybe I love
extremely
talking about
cynical.
flies.
No,
Yeah.
I have got many, many questions, and I've got to be honest because as much as you would like to escape the political shadow that looms above you, or cloud that looms above you, you can't because that's where you work. And so, well, we're not going to talk about politics on the show. For me, I'm always wondering, what does somebody want from me? What do they have around the corner? What's the campaign? What's the book? Is there anything around the corner? What's the podcast
No,
tour about?
I love fly fishing, and obviously, I mean, if you're in public service or public life, this is a niche audience. If you have to be that kind of tactical, different dimension, President Obama, not to be the person introducing politics, he we used to go back and forth, similar in some ways, become a mate. Block if you're in our life blocking stuff out, you're outside, etc. And he goes, "You don't look like a fly fisherman. You don't act." And I said, "That's possibly true. This does not look, but I am totally in love with the sport and been doing it for 20 plus years."
I did gather that in listening to you chat with Tom.
Hmm.
And I don't think a fly fisher looks like any particular person. I think you very much look like a fly fisher.
Well, if you knew, you obviously don't know my personality. So let's just say it's on the spectrum of A.
Okay. Well, let's
if
go
A
there.
if A had degrees, I'm on the wild side. One guide once said, "You put the word sport back into fly fishing."
Okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's get there. So let's start where we start everybody, and that is where were you born and raised?
Born in Chicago, raised in Chicago. Spent a good portion of my childhood, though, because my dad's Israeli, going back and forth between Chicago and Israel. But Chicago's home. That's where I'm doing this discussion, this podcast. Chicago's always been home.
Got it. And then the fishing influence, or just even before then, the outdoor influence. Was that your
Mm,
dad, your grandpa?
no, it was actually friends. I had gotten elected to Congress 2002, and I think my son, let's say, is 6, a daughter's 4, another one's 3, and I wanted to establish we're going to take vacations at this time of year where Congress, White House, Mayor, City Hall, it's out. I'm just their dad, and we're blocked. And I wanted them to see the world. A good friend of mine had one child. I have 3, and he wanted that child to have sibling like experience, and we're different. And he loved planning vacations. He was a fly fisherman. So my first trip, we decided we're going to go to Argentina in 2000. Yeah, like usually people kind of build up to Argentina. That's the first trip, and I get totally smitten. And we're up, in Patagonia. We're also in this national park of a great glacier lakes, and I'm not. I suck. Let's also be clear because the first time, I'm whacking this thing.
Well, and it's
You know,
windy, to be fair. It's one of the hardest places to start. You went there fly fishing, not just
yeah,
traveling, but Fly fishing.
Fly fishing.
Wow, way to be thrown off the deep end.
Yeah, no, it was without your water wings or anything.
Yeah.
And then the next year, we wanted the family. That's a portion of it, but we spent time in Buenos Aires and of that. Then we went to Brazil, and then I kind of got into. And then friends of mine had property and in Montana, and then that became a regular part. And then when I was fast forward. So anyway, we did that with the kids, etc. And we also did the Montana trips. And I just, it just kind of snowballed, to be lack of a better way of saying it. And then when I was mayor, and with all the stress of being the mayor of the city of Chicago, about six guys, we would have an annual first week of May when the Missouri opened up, a float trip, and we would go 4 days, etc. That became something we did over. Anyway, I did it and I became in love with it. And that's how it all snowballed to a point. You would never describe my grandfather or my father outdoorsmen, but that's how it came about.
So it came much later in life then.
Totally.
What was your hobby before then?
Now this is going to turn off. I don't know if I would say there's three hobbies you could say. You don't know this, but I mean, it's been growing up. I had a scholarship to the Joffrey Ballet. I was a dancer.
No, it's great. No, it's excellent.
I did not take it, but I was. Well, it's a funny story. I'm a freshman in high school playing soccer. Off season, I said to my mother, I really want to improve my soccer game. I want to get into the varsity, And that was the days when Rosie Greer was playing football in the Minnesota Vikings. And he took up ballet, this giant defensive lineman. And so I took up ballet, and I'm in a class, and I look around, and it's me and 30 women. And I
sounds like a smart man. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, and the light bulb goes off, and I go, I can sit on the bench with 12 guys, being cold, frigid, wait for my 1 minute in a classroom, or I could be in a ballet class wearing leotard and tights with 30 women. 30 women. That was my first judgment. So that was that. The other hobbies, I love reading, and I love. I've done a number of bike trips. When I was ambassador to Japan, I did 4 separate bike trips. My daughter and I were about to do one, but we did one from Amsterdam to Brussels. We're going to do probably either Ireland, Scotland, or Portugal. We haven't decided. I did when I walked out of City Hall the next morning. I rode all of Lake Michigan for 13 days, 1,000 miles with a friend. And I think it's the best way to actually, honestly, travel. Much better than plane, much better than train, much better than driving. So that would be the other hobby I really love, and I love, and I've done other trips, the coast of Oregon, Pittsburgh into DC on the A&O Canal. So that would be the other outdoor activity. 5, 6, 7, 8 day bike trips.
This is great. May I suggest Scotland? I was there yesterday. I was there for a few days, but I left yesterday, and. Unbelievable. Not only is the fishing amazing, but the history. I don't know if you're a big history buff, but the history there, God. It's as rich as it gets. I mean, literally and figuratively, right? But it's so special. And they have this thing called the right to roam, which I found out because I thought that was kind of peculiar. But
what does the right to roam mean?
That's what I said. So we were staying, don't judge me, but we were staying at a castle.
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
Okay. We were staying at the Gordon Castle. And it's this private property, and there are all these people walking their dogs. And I said, that's amazing that you guys let everybody come in and walk their dogs. They said, oh, no, it's not us. It's the right to roam. And while we were fishing private beats, there are all these people roaming the right to roam. So you're only allowed to own, I think, your house and the garden, but people can basically walk around your front yard. I don't know how I feel about it, but private property is not really private. People in Scotland have the right to walk on it. So I guess what I'm saying is, as a cyclist, you really can go just about anywhere in Scotland, and there's great fishing and history.
Well, the history I know, the fishing I know, obviously because of the rainbow trout. We'll look it up because it's September. We're looking either
Mm.
Ireland, Portugal. We'll add Scotland. Um, and if we go Scotland, you'll get credit for it. And if there's a river that you think I have to go to, you got to tell me.
Yes, the river spay
Okay.
for salmon. You would
Okay.
be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't at least look into. Have you caught an Atlantic salmon yet?
I have not done salmon fishing. I'm thinking of actually going to your neck of the woods in Western Canada.
Okay, for
To,
steelhead
yeah.
or for
Yes.
Pacific salmon.
No. Steelhead.
Have you caught one yet?
I haven't done it. I'm planning the trip now, right now.
But have you caught
So
a Great Lake steelhead out in your way?
no.
Okay, there's so much to talk about. Okay, let's
Yes,
get
yeah.
back to your timeline. So you go to South America and you realize, okay, this is for me. Did you have a moment where you thought, I could have been doing this whole time? This was here, and I've been so busy doing X, Y, and Z.
No.
What?
I mean, I loved, in the boat. I love that. What I love most about fly fishing, obviously the success of getting a fish on the hook, etc. But that sense of tension when you have it, it's racing. Now, there's one experience in this Argentinian trip. Um, it's a glacier lake. We did a river float for 2 days, 3 days. That was exciting. Get it, those floats you really had to get your bank shot. They're not living out in the middle. And I got to be honest, I sucked. That's number one. But in the lake, that was quite the experience. And then the fish were going all the way. I mean, they were just dove to the bottom, 70 plus feet. It's crystal clear because it's a glacier. And it's like they got a PhD. They're wrapping around those logs at the bottom and they're just like, I dare you to pull me out now, you sucker. So that, but the tension, when you have a fish, the tension on your arm, that connection to that live animal, in this case fish, is nothing as exhilarating as that. And I just got, now I'm very task oriented. So, yeah, you're walking, reading the water. I don't know about you, wading is up here, floating. I'll do it, but I don't want to make it a habit.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
There is to me no better experience in the sense of outdoors. You're wading, you're reading the water, you hook a fish, the water is rushing on you, the fish is running downstream. You don't want to slip on the rocks. You got to give it tension. You got to give it enough place to run, but keep the tension. I love that whole experience. There's nothing, and it's very and if in my life, I don't know how to, blocking out the office, blocking out the pressure, blocking out, and you're so laser-like focused with blinders, both your head, your eyes, your ears. That moment is enrapturing and capturing of you. And I can block out the rest of my stress related to whether it was being chief of staff for President Obama or mayor of the city of Chicago. There's nothing like that.
Okay, so was that, yeah, no, this is great. So was that the thought process? I'm trying to figure out what makes you tick when it comes to fly fishing. So was that kind of,
I love,
you just loved
look,
it.
I'm a water sports person to this day. I've been doing it for 40 plus years. I swim 3 miles a week. I swim a mile 3 times a week. Beaches, anything around water, I love. This was the one thing where you were in the water, but you basically had clothes on also. I've never tried it the other way.
I mean, it sounds exciting. So
yeah.
what's next in the timeline then? So you go on this trip, you love it. What happens next?
I decided we're going to do another one. And so we went to Brazil to Aquaboa.
What for? What were you fishing for?
It was peacock bass.
Oh my goodness. Okay, exciting.
But then I find out the place we go, who do you think you and maybe you'll appreciate, your listeners will. The year before I got there, who was there? Vice President Dick Cheney. So that was the end of my bipartisanship at that experience. And then after Brazil, we spent about 4 days up. You go to Managua, and then Manaus rather, and you take a little. I don't know. It's an hour flight from there, and then you take a boat up the water. I mean, you really are isolated, and that was another enriching experience. And then I found this could be incredible. And then I started doing stuff: Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, Idaho, the Western American experience. I did some in Michigan, etc., like that. And I just said, it's when I was getting better. So when you're getting better, but like this, like everything, you're getting better, but you're never really good.
That's the best part, though,
Yeah, no,
because
no, 100%. I mean, now I can. I mean, if I had to break it down, I have an uncanny sense to read the water.
okay,
Uncanny. Um, for a guide, I probably use too much wrist rather than the perfect 12 o'clock. When things are right, I got a pretty good 45 to 50 feet on target. I'll give you another thing that's, to me, exhilarating. If your guide says it's over here, I want you to try something, and you hit it, and they're rising, you hit it exactly that 2 feet ahead of them, and it just floats for that kind of 3-4 seconds, and you see them rise. They take it to hit. They point. You're spotting. You're targeting, and you score. And it's not like 7 tries where you've now scared the crap out of the fish and they're gone. That to me is, the precision that takes is great. Another place, although I just recently I've done it twice, and now that you're doing this from Australia, I'll say, when I was ambassador to Japan in 2022, and then I just did it in 2024, right after the first of the year, I went to New Zealand.
yes,
And there is nothing, when you helicopter into the gorge, just you and a guide, you're there for 9 hours, climbing the rocks. I mean, it is, and boulders. I mean, not just climbing rocks. I had the last experience. Well, the first time I did it, I caught a 8 pound. It was, or just shy of 8 pounds. It was a massive fish.
a
Caught
brown.
one the whole day. Yeah, I have it on
That's
video and everything, so I have living proof.
that's a good fish, though.
Yeah, it was, according to the guide, second biggest one in that water for him. And then this year, we also did a helicopter, and I was on, my cast was in that zone. I was just firing 3-pointers from everywhere. I caught 5 in the day, and they were 28 inches, 20. I was just on my game, and that was and the other thing is the fish in New Zealand. I mean, you're not doing that for 2 minutes. You're doing that for 5, 6, 7 minutes back and forth and fight. So that was great. And that's another beautiful place to go fishing. Anyway, now it's just practice, 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 practice.
When you go to these places and you're in a lodge, which I would assume
Yeah.
in some of these places you're at a lodge, how do you get away from talking politics? Like you mentioned Cheney, and I'm thinking to myself, one of the wonderful things about fly fishing is that it doesn't matter it doesn't matter where you work, it doesn't matter who you are, because
Yeah.
we all kind of, when I was running a
It's a great
lodge,
equalizer.
yeah, well, when I ran the lodge, there was no talking politics. How do you manage
Oh,
that? Because I would imagine people want to talk to you about it.
yeah. Let's be clear. I do love politics. I mean, it's my passion in life and so on. So when the 6 guys, we did that annual trip down the Missouri. If I said to you, we didn't talk about it, we love talking about it, so we would get into it, etc. It wasn't the most dominant thing, but no dinner went or meal went without talking about it.
Got it.
It's funny, in Argentina, back to this trip, in this glacier park, there is one cabin, and the couple was leaving. Our 2 families were coming in, and they're having breakfast. We arrived for our breakfast. We're going to go out, and it was 2 couples from San Francisco, and I just got elected to Congress, etc. But because of my work for President Clinton, etc., they knew me, so we talked politics. But it was like, they're leaving, I'm staying. Um, I found a couple guys actually in Montana that actually, it's not I don't want to talk politics, but they like talking about politics, so I'll engage it. The goal is to shut out the pressure of the office, not to shut out a topic I also equally love, which is politics.
Yeah, no, I think
So,
it's a
and there's
great
some,
answer.
there,
Yeah.
I think I don't know if I said this on the other show, but so I told you I was ambassador to Japan, blah, blah, blah. And so I happened to break out and find the time I can go. I gave some speech at Senator Mansfield's institute, who was a prior ambassador to Japan. He has an institute. He's from Senator from Montana. And in America, the State Department will pay your trip. So they offered to invite me to speak. I get the State Department to pay the trip, and I run over to my property, fish in Montana for a couple of days. Anyway, I'm with the guide. We're doing stuff, etc. And every time I say thank you, I give a slight bow. So about an hour into
Pan,
this
of
fishing,
course.
yeah, an hour into it, he goes, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I go, "Sure, correct. What's Nick?" It's Nico. I go, "What?" He goes, "Hey, like this with his what's with the bow?" I said, "Oh, in Japan, that's how they say thank you. It's become like a second nature." He goes, "Oh, hey, if I were you, I'd lose that."
And how about that they get lower every time in Japan?
Well, the emperor, if you're with anybody, you can kind of bow just slightly, almost your head and your shoulders. They train you when you see the emperor. It's really from your hip, your waist. You have to really go. But anyway, it was very funny because he's like process. You could see his head, the ticker tape. He's processing this. Kind of looks at you and goes, "Well, while you're in Montana, I'd lose that." Like, you're gonna get shot. You keep that.
That is funny though. I remember when I was in Japan and ran into somebody in the hallway. I think we kind of played chicken for a minute, and I said sorry, and they bowed. So I bowed, and then they bowed lower, and then it was almost like we were on a race to
Yeah,
the floor. But did you ever fish in Japan?
I did. Um, Two places. One is, I don't know why I'm moving my body this way. Nobody can see it. So Tokyo's on the eastern side, eastern side. I went about, call it hour and a half car ride straight west.
Okay.
And then one's all the way on the main island, which is where Tokyo is, all the way to the top, where it's just south of Hokkaido, the northern island. Anyway,
Yeah.
I did fish. Is It's a beautiful country. The fly fishing is very frustrating.
Yeah.
And for a kid raised on Montana, Argentina, Wyoming, very frustrating. It's
Yeah.
great. They're great, but to the credit, there is now I'm past getting in trouble with the State Department. Okay. So
Okay.
there's an old man. They know that I like fly fishing, etc. I'm here there 3 years. Call it 2 years and 10 months. One day I walk in the office. They said, "Oh, you got a gift." A gentleman that used to work here years ago uh, dropped a gift off. And I said, "What is it?" They said, "We don't know. It's a tube." And I thought maybe a map or whatever. So it's on my desk. So I walk through the security, get to my desk, unwrap it, and it's a fly fishing rod tube. He, who used to work at the embassy up until about the 90s, he's 82 years old, is the head of the Japanese Fly Fishing Association, read a story that I love fly fishing. He gives me as a gift, thanking me for my 10 years ambassador, a old Kawasaki 1X bamboo handmade fishing rod. Now, the part that gets you in trouble, anything above $20, you have to declare. And if you have to declare, you have to give it back they keep it. I'm hoping the statute of limitations is over because I kept it.
As as you should.
Yeah. Well, there's a State Department rule, etc. My Japan prior to the gift stole my heart, but to have a original Kawasaki handmade bamboo 1X. So I said to him, I said, "Oh well, I have this is so kind," and I called him and I met with him. I said, "This is beyond nice." I said, "I can't thank you enough." And I said to him, uh, "You know, I have property in Montana. He goes, oh, I know. And I go, oh, really? I go, uh, my guess is this won't work. He said, well, where's your, I said, you don't probably know it. It's in Montana. He goes, well, I've actually fished Montana in the 80s. I said, well, it's a small little town. And I said the town. He goes, oh, I've been there. It was on the Madison River. He says, I fish there. He goes, no, you can't use this rod there, but you could use it in particular. So that was that's the other piece of how international that we all find each other and find this love. But
We
in
do.
Japan, if you go in New Zealand and you get one fish and it's 8 pounds, 30 inches,
If
in yeah, if
some
you
of
go
us.
to Japan, if you go to Japan and you catch a fish and it's 10 inches, they're happy. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? This was a long day, man. The fish are. It's a like every. It's a very tech. I mean, not that fly fishing anywhere in the world is not technical. This is a precision sport
Yeah, it's
in
especially
Japan.
technical there. What about
Yeah,
for the Taiman there in Hokkaido? That's been a big dream of mine to go there.
I did not get there. I did the bike trip there, and I got to be honest. I was biking with a buddy, doesn't fly fish, so I threw that out the window. Made a mistake. I'm full up.
You'll have to go
Gives
back.
me, yeah, it gives me a reason to go back.
What about
Yeah,
bears? Did you see a lot of bears? I hear they've got a major problem there right now.
I did not see bears there. In when I was fishing one year, 2019 in Alaska, I saw bears. Uh, in Montana, um, uh, my daughter was with my wife, and they were with a guide. Anyway, they were on some other part of the river. They were fishing, and Alana was call her 8, 9. And she goes, "Oh, isn't that cute that Amy's fishing and she's behind her?" Da, da, da. And Alana says, "Oh, look how beautiful they are." Da, da, da. So Amy turns around, and there are two cubs,
Oh,
and Amy sweeps her up, the guide, and they just thank God they were at a place on the river that was shallow enough to get to the other side, but they just oh, well, you see a lot right now. I did on my last trip in Montana a lot of moose.
oh, yeah.
A lot, but no, I've seen moose in other times of the trip. Other times I've been in Montana, but this last trip in April, I must have seen a moose a day, which is and one of my favorite parts of this trip. So south of the downriver from the house, call it a quarter mile. I went around 2:30, and I'm working my way back up to the house just for an afternoon fish. And I come upon this little grassy island. There's a beautiful hole I like on the side against the bank. It's between the island and the bank. And I'm getting up there, and I'm, about to get ready. All of a sudden, on the island, stand up is this giant moose. It crosses the 20 feet to the bank off of the island, grassy island. And I'm sitting there fishing in this beautiful little run hole. And 30 feet away is a moose just eating leaves off a tree, watching me. I'm watching it. And nothing better. But you can't, but there was every day that was happening, which is usually you'll see one a trip. Every day I was seeing a moose.
Yeah,
Now,
maybe the
some
numbers
guy,
coming back.
some, yeah, I think the numbers are coming back. And one person in town said, and this, I have no basis, this sounds right to me. About 6 years ago, they reintroduced the wolf in the mountains, and the moose are coming down into the valley for vegetation, etc.
Yeah.
So that they're and the wolf has come back, and that rings true to me. There's something that rings. That's a good. That's a viable analysis.
How in touch with conservation and environment are you with your role, with the roles that you've had over the years? Can
Oh,
you sway things in our direction?
I didn't. I will. This is not fly fishing, but in the environmental area
Sure.
in Chicago, I was a big well, two things I would say out of my career. In Chicago, we're very fortunate. We have this beautiful lakefront. Every other city in the Midwest, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Cleveland, Toronto, Milwaukee, Buffalo industrializes their waterfront. Chicago is the only city in the late 1800s, no industry on its 18-mile lakefront, zero.
Oh,
It's all
why?
public beaches. One, we get away with it because we industrialize our river that goes right down the Chicago River that feeds down to the Mississippi, to the Illinois River, and then into the Mississippi. And so that's where the tanneries are. That's where the lumber is. That's where the coal. That's just it. It's from the lake into the city is about a mile, and then it breaks out either side down the spine in the middle of the city, 18 miles. So in late 1800s, four leaders of the city, Montgomery Ward, etc., make a decision that the lake will always be open and fully accessible. And we just have 18 miles of the lakefront. And it was late 1800s, an incredibly foresight. Now, the other reason is there's a public health because of, people were living on top of each other in the city. Both the lakefront and the park system and dealing with typhoon, a lot of public health illnesses that are spread. The open air was actually a public health a benefit. And so the lake is part of that public health, let alone also access. Our motto is we're a city in the garden. When I become mayor, I'm campaigning, and this is also in the original documents for the city going back to the late 1800s post the fire. We were going to be a two waterfront city, but the river had become extremely polluted. And when I was growing up, you never even looked at it. It was just not in your eyesight because it was dirty. In the 70s, and the entire river comes down to 6 species left. Today, because of the Friends of the Chicago River, I want to say myself and my predecessor, Mayor Daley, and other things that private sector, public sector does, there's north of 70 species that have returned. Massive turtle population, otters, etc. It's just unbelievable. And I created along the river this river walk. Kayaking, canoeing has come massively back. REI put their one unique store in the urban, so you could go to the store, rent a canoe, go. People are out kayaking all the time. And I passed a bill, an ordinance rather, in the city that if you did development, 100 feet of riverfront, you had to pick 2 out of the 4 choices for restoration. If you did 200, you had to do 3 out of 5. If you did more than 200, I'm making all the numbers up, but you get the drift of it, the direction. Let's say you did 500 feet of riverfront, you had to do all 5 things for restoration. And that was just part of the zoning, otherwise you couldn't build. And we have collectively over the years, now you still can't swim in it, but you're like 10 inches away from it, where it's safe enough to both swim in the river, let alone the lake is clearly safe. But that was a big driver of mine. Both the river walk, we built 4 different canoe and kayak public park facilities, and we sponsored crewing as a sport that came back to the city of Chicago. And then the other thing, when I was congressman, I ran on this and we passed it. President Biden, his tenure, put $1 billion in it, called the Great Lakes Restoration Act. And it was to allow Superior, Michigan, Ontario, Huron, etc., to get resources to bring back the ecological quality of the Great Lakes. So those are the 2 things that you could say in my tenure that have ecological environmental restoration that I have done. And I'm a contributor regularly to groups that do stuff in the rivers and out west. But if you said, what have I done when I was Congressman, Chief of Staff, Mayor? Those would be the things.
So everything is managed per state. Is that
In
right?
our state? Yeah, I mean, there's national laws, but
okay.
Yes, but everything is managed. Yes. Like the Montana rivers, while you have the natural resource office, the Montana State Authority really manages Yellowstone, Madison, the Gallatin, the
Yeah.
Black Root, etc.
The top tier rivers. But in the Great
Yeah.
Lakes, everything's just so tight. And
Oh
I
well,
feel
in
like you're
that
right
case,
next door.
we are.
I know.
uh, in that case, there is a. I'm not going to remember the year, but there's a compact
Okay.
between all the Great Lakes states, including the Canadian.
That's what I was
Um,
wondering.
yeah, yeah. As it relates to the management of, let's say, the water in Lake Michigan, which Toronto abuts, and other parts of Canada, there's a compact. I'm saying it was in the 80s that there was that agreement came about, but somebody's going to call and says, how could he be that stupid? He doesn't even know. But I think it's during the 80s that compact gets agreed to.
Yeah, thank you. Now,
Yeah,
back to your personal timeline. So
yeah.
you fall in love with fishing. Did you end up taking a step back from politics? What did you end up doing
Oh,
with your career and your life? And I guess
well, I
let's go to 2000. When were you with Obama? Sorry, this
so
is my
yeah,
Canadian coming through here.
yeah, it's okay, but you're not the 51st state. That you're safe. Okay, don't worry about it.
Don't even get me
Uh,
started.
don't get me started. So uh, I get elected to Congress. I work here. Here's a quick chronology. 1993, I'm President Clinton's senior advisor all the way to 1998. Come back to Chicago after the White House. He has 2 more years on his tenure. I go into the private sector. 2002, I run for Congress, get elected from Chicago, get elected 4 times. It's every 2 years. 2004, 2006, 2008. I get elected in 2008. President Obama, who's from Illinois and Chicago, because I had been in the White House with Clinton and been in Congress, I want you to be my chief of staff. I served from 2008 to 2010, almost the same. I leave October. I said yes in November of 2008. Anyway, 2 years. Come back to Chicago 2010. I run for mayor. I get elected mayor of Chicago. And I served that from May of 2011 to May of 2019.
Ooh.
Step back, take 2 years, and I then become United States ambassador to Japan. In 2000, I get confirmed 2001, but I get to Japan 2022. Serve all the way to 2000 and January 2025, 3 years almost to the day. And now I'm in this position. So global, ambassador, mayor, chief of staff, senior advisor, U.S. congressman.
What was your preference?
Well, I would say mayor of Chicago is the most rewarding and the most draining. It's the highest of highs. Like we created, if you get a B average in Chicago, we made community college free. You get free tuition for 2 years, free books, and free transportation. You earn a B, we make the next 2 years free. I saw it change families' lives. 20,000 kids have used it. About 3/4 of the first one in the family ever to go to college. And I made pre-kindergarten 4-year-old education universal to the city and kindergarten universal. And so you can touch people's lives and see it. On the other hand, there's other stuff in that job that just drains your soul. From the violence in certain neighborhoods, the poverty, and it just takes everything out of you. So you have the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. In retrospect, the chief of staff is a great job, but while you go through it, it is the worst job in the world. It's like going in face forward into 90-mile-an-hour sub-zero wind chill, and it's just the worst. In retrospect, it looks great. During it, it is less than great.
Were you able were you able to find any
but I will say that I want to say I love public service. I love doing something where you can affect people's lives. Every one of them I learned a tremendous amount working for President Clinton. I learned a tremendous amount of being the United States ambassador to Japan. Every one of them are a gift. And you hope you make a difference.
Were you able to find any peace fishing during that time when you were chief of staff?
Oh, yeah. No, I would. I mean, I love President Obama, but give me a break. I'm not giving. In fact, we had a famous, we went, he was going to Montana for something, for some healthcare event. He got off the front of the plane. I think he also fishes on this trip. I got off the back of the plane. I got into my car and I went, boom. I was on the 16-mile that day. It was in 2009. I remember it distinctly. Yeah. Oh, in fact, I forgot. Oh, it was towards the end. I think it's like 2010. It's like the summer before I leave. We were having one of our disagreements about something. I get a call, and I had Secret Service protection, and they said the president wants to talk to you. So I have to get off the river, and I go into the cabin. This cabin happened to be there with fortune, and we're going back and forth. I just leave the topic alone, etc.
Sure.
Well, it was about the mosque actually being built down the south end of Manhattan, or being proposed to be built. And anyway, I just said, look, I love you. I try not to interrupt your golf. You're interrupting my fishing. We're not going to resolve this. You're the president. You get to decide. I gave you my 2 cents. Can I go fishing, please? And he goes, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you tonight. Because he says you misunderstand. I said, no, I don't misunderstand. I love you, but I need to chill right now. You need to be away from me. I need to be away from you. I don't interrupt your golf. Don't interrupt my fishing. I'll call you tonight. He goes, you're on.
Take a breather. What does the Secret Service do while you're fishing?
Watch. I'll tell you there's a funny story. So first time, I don't know if you know this property in Montana called 16 Mile. It's a very famous, it's basically now obviously in Montana, the water is public. If you're on the water, you can't get on the land, that's trespassing. If you're in the water, public. It's a very famous area called 16 Miles. This one family owns 10,000 acres around this, or 20,000. It's massive. Anyway, I'm chief of staff, and the family knows I'm coming to Montana. They offer me to come on this. It's like, oh my God. And, it's also unfair because the fish hadn't seen a fly or a rod in like 20 years. So you're just like casting, even if it's a sloppy cast and your arm is tired towards the end, you're like hitting home runs all day long. So literally on the bank of the river, while you're fishing, even though I'm not with a guide and we're walking, I told the Secret Service, I said, guys, you got it. First of all, nothing's going to fricking happen here. Okay. Like chill. Nobody. First of all, if they're coming after me, you're going to see them about 30 minutes before they get to us.
Yeah.
You got to keep the cars back because the fish will feel, but literally you got two black Suburbans on either side of the riverbank driving along about 100 feet behind, because if you have an emergency, you got to be able to get on the phone and et cetera, et cetera. And I say that so we're on the open part of it, but I'm walking on the water and we're getting into a valley area where it's very, very narrow, both the water, but also narrow between the 2 miles. And I don't know how they did it. I still don't know. Somehow they figured out how to get those Suburbans alongside the river, between the riverbank and the mountains. To this day, I don't know how the hell they figured it out, but that's what they did.
Does it suck the enjoyment out of it for you?
What's that?
Does it suck the enjoyment out of it for you?
No, I don't focus on it. I mean, I don't mean to say this, but ambassador, chief of staff, mayor, you had security around my whole life. So not my whole life, but I don't even think about it. Now, when I traveled as mayor and I went fly fishing, my local security never came with it. When I did a personal trip with my family, they never came with it. Only time that they would travel with you is chief of staff or U.S. ambassador, but not as mayor. I made it because the city taxpayers are paying. I said, guys, you're not coming on a holiday. I don't want you and my taxpayers, I don't want them to have to pay for it. So we're not doing it.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You said up until now, you'd given me your timeline up until now. What are you doing now?
So I work for, I'm doing a couple things. Uh, I work for a private investment bank, boutique investment bank, Centerview. And I'm on the board of a private cybersecurity firm that's got its own unique. Then I have a column when as soon as we're done. I'm getting my edits back, but I write every 3 weeks for the Washington Post. And I'm like political and global affairs commentator for CNN.
Oh, wow, you're really busy.
Yeah, that's why one has to fish.
Right. What's the long-term plan? Do you want to get back into, I think I read somewhere that you want to run for president.
Well, I don't know. Well, I haven't made that decision. I want to. I mean, if you want the standard line is, the standard line is,
I don't want
I'm not
standard
done.
anything on this show. Tell me the tea.
No, the T is, look, I'm not done. I'm too young to be done with public service. I love it. I really do, for all the headaches. And I don't know. Now, if you look at my career, I've been appointed, I run. I've been appointed, I run. I've been appointed. So the natural next thing would be I run. But, I've served in different positions. President Biden appointed me ambassador to Japan. President Obama appointed me and asked me to serve as his chief of staff. On the other hand, the people of the city of Chicago have elected me to the United States Congress and elected me their mayor. So I've run and I've been appointed. So I'll figure it out. These are all high class problems.
What do you want?
I'm proud, April, I'm in that point in my life. I got one office left in me.
Okay.
And that's number one. I recently said, and I really do, I've been away because when you're ambassador, you can't talk about you're not allowed to get involved in politics. And I'm in Japan and I'm watching both America, but I'm watching my party as a Democrat. And I've said this, that I'm not sitting in the back seat of Thelma and Louise's car anymore as they gun it and drive for the cliff. So I've been speaking out pretty vocal about the direction both of the country, the party, what I think our party has to do. So I don't know whether it goes, one of the things is I have one race left in me or one office. I think I have something to say, something to offer. If I think somebody else does that and there's not a space for me or my view, then I'll step back. But if I do think nobody else is occupying this and I think I can contribute something to both A, either winning or B, the party, I'll make that risk. And I don't know yet. I've been back 5 months, literally almost. Today's what, May 21st? I arrived back around this time, right before January 19th. So it's only been 5 months. I just started, my clock just ticked back in. So I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
these are high class problems.
They are, but I'm very curious. I'm very curious about all the behind the scenes and kind of, sorry, I just saw the dog go ripping.
What kind of dog do you have?
I've got a Vizsla and it's it's starting to get too cold for snakes now, but we've got a python. So I'm constantly
in Sydney?
Yeah, we've got this python named Penny, and so I'm constantly trying to keep Penny and Remy, the dog.
Why do you have a python snake?
It's not she just lives here. She's not mine.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So when I just had to look away because I thought I saw Remy chasing a snake, but all is well. But so you're not, and again, I don't know how to say this and have any tact, but so you're not like shilling anything. You don't have a book coming out. You don't have a race around the corner. Like, why are you here, Rahm? Why are you here?
Why are you wasting this hour with me?
No, I love it. I'm genuinely curious about you, but I want to know what you're doing the circuit for.
I've written 2 books. Once when I got done being mayor, I said the nation city because I thought big cities, Toronto, Montreal. Montreal has some beautiful light public art and stuff like that. Cities were the vitality of where you live, work, and play, and the cities were becoming transformational in how society works, how economies work, etc. When I'm a congressman, a friend of mine from the Clinton White House and I wrote a book called The Plan, New Big Ideas for the Democratic Party. Actually, a lot of it I did when I was mayor. Free community college. We talk about universal kindergarten, pre-K, things I did in Chicago, retirement stuff that I did for Obama, healthcare. Uh, there's actually, I've been thinking about a book, but it's not uh, like the other two are policy books. So if you're an American, you know about this unique history between Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. They worked together, Declaration of Independence, founding fathers. They have this massive fallout based on Jefferson as vice president running against Adams for president. Adams loses, Jefferson becomes president. They don't talk for X years. Benjamin Rush puts them back in the final years of their life. And there's beautiful letters as the last two survivors of that generation. That's a founding mythological, and they both left out the headline. These two great leaders of the founding documents of both the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, two presidents, they both die on July 4th, the same year, the same day, and the day of independence. We all know that. So I was thinking, in a post-Trump world, what would capture people? And so I'm actually working with an editor now. We have a proposal in front of a publishing house. There are three other presidencies where a Democrat and Republican face off against each other, but then afterwards, they develop a lifetime of friendship. And one is Truman and Eisenhower. Truman, it's a famous story. In the drive over to Eisenhower's inaugural together, not a word is said between them, ever. And neither Truman or Eisenhower communicate when Eisenhower's president. Cold as ice. They stay at the Blair House, which is across the street from the White House, during John Kennedy's funeral. And they stay up till 6 in the morning. Jackie invites them over, and they renew a friendship for the rest of their lives. No, it's not 20 years, but it's less than a decade. But there's this friendship between Eisenhower and Truman after this ice cold experience. And they renew it, and the impetus is they're in the Blair House together during John Kennedy's funeral. George Bush 41, Bill Clinton face off against each other. Bill Clinton beats Bush. They go to the Pope's funeral, and they start a friendship from that experience that becomes the Bush-Clinton show. President Bush 43 makes jokes that he never knew he had an older brother, Bill Clinton, and they become what's left of their. I mean, President Bush has passed away. President Clinton is still alive, who I happened to see the other day, and they develop this friendship. And then third, which the public has seen recently, Carter and Ford run against each other, but they develop at President Sadat's funeral, if they're both in attendance, a friendship where both of them have letters read at the other's funeral. At Jimmy Carter's recent funeral, Gerald Ford's son reads a letter that President Ford had written. All three of these friendships, Democrat, Republican, are started when both attend together the funeral of the Pope, President Sadat, or President Kennedy. And you could argue this, this was another era, or they face their own mortality at these funerals. And then they become lifelong friends that do work together. So that would be the book I'm actually working on.
So basically,
I know that's a lot.
No.
For a Canadian, that's like, what's with these Americans? But that's what I'm thinking about writing. That's not what I'm thinking of writing. That's what I want to write.
I love it.
Because I think, our politics has a bit of a Hunger Games quality to it. And I don't think, A, that's not normal. And B, while you know about Jefferson and Adams, these three other presidential friendships, while not widely explored, and they're all post-World War II, this era of America, And that was normal. What we're doing today is not normal. And I think there's a yearning in America for that kind of image where you can, even though you were, they all three ran against each other. I mean, all three of these ran, don't run it, except for Truman and Eisenhower don't run. Truman offers Eisenhower that he will go back to being vice president if Eisenhower runs for president. He'll be his vice president. Eisenhower rejects it, comes back and runs 2 years later, or 3 years later as president on the Republican ticket, which is one of the things that irritates Truman. Anyway, it's just a fascinating thing. So that's what's next.
You're basically going to take Trump fly fishing, and then
No,
everybody will get along, and we'll have this
no.
wonderful new formed friendship.
April, if I take him fly fishing, that python in your yard's coming with me.
Oh, well, Trump Jr. Actually, Trump Jr. Just for people who are going to write me about this, I had Trump Jr. on the show too. So I don't want anyone trying to. People would never assume my political. People can assume my political stance, but nobody would ever actually guess it. And I will keep that to myself here. But I've had all sides on the show.
Let me ask you a question. Can I flip you a question?
You can flip me any question you'd like. Yeah.
Well, yeah. What got you into fly fishing?
Good save. I like that. I got into fishing because of the water. I love the water.
So the same thing. You like water, and you agree wading it.
100%. The feel of it against my body, the power of it against me, looking down, at my feet and looking at the different colors of the rocks, and just being a kid and loving the water. Can I ask you a question that's uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to anyway? Your finger. What happened to your finger?
So, 17.
Okay.
I'm making money to go to college, and I'm working on a meat cutter.
Oh, no.
And it's one of those round blades that goes backward and forward. I'm cleaning it. It's not moving. They forgot to tell me about a metal glove. Management never told me. And anyway, without grossing you out, nor anybody on the audience.
That's all right.
I slice, wait until you hear it. I slice it very, very deep. Cut the bone. It's hanging by a thread, put it on, run water, wrap it really tight. Now, one of the things you'll have to know, if you're the son of a doctor, which I am, the worst health care in America is a child of a doctor.
Well,
for sure. Okay. Because they're so focused on their patients, they don't give a crap about their own kids. So I know you find this shocking. A small piece of meat from the blade had gotten underneath, and I had cut the bone. I developed gangrene, 5 blood infections, 2 bone infections. And because it's right near my graduation, I don't go to see a doctor for 96, no less than that, about 72 hours. I get massively sick. They rush me to the hospital. I get 105 plus fever. I'm in packs of ice for 96 hours. And I'm going back and forth in the delusion, etc., lose control of my body, etc. They want to take my arm off, just cut it off to stop the bone infection spread that was rapidly moving. A nurse not only saves my arm, she saves my life. Anyway, I'm in the hospital 7 weeks, and 3 of my roommates had died during that process. And about 2-3 weeks in, I had gotten stabilized, and I was going to go to surgery, and they were going to keep cutting until they found healthy bone. And they said it could be your arm, it could be your finger, it could be your up to your elbow, it could be your wrist. They didn't know because I had stabilized physically, but they didn't know where the infection had gone. And anyway, I went in 3 weeks, and then when you evaluated all that could have happened.
That is a best case scenario.
There's no doubt, but I had lost this finger. And has anybody ever told you about phantom pains? So the first about 6 months, I would feel this finger, and it would itch, and so I would scratch the side of my ring finger, and it would itch the finger that was no longer there. It would scratch the itch. It was very weird. And anyway, and then I would get in the winter, I went to school in New York, it would get very purple because it's cold. So but that's how I lost it. I was a meat cutter.
Oh, that's so interesting. Did you have any other random jobs that we wouldn't expect you to have? I
Well,
mean,
I was a
besides the
meat
fact that you
cutter.
also did ballet, it
The
is
other, I was,
unusual.
when you look at me at this way, I worked on an industrial landscaping job. So
Okay.
when they were doing development in the suburbs or whatever, we work a highway, the road out, laying sod and digging ditches for trees. That was not awkward job, but me cutting. It's called industrial landscaping. It was not like cut the lawn at somebody's home. We would take 3 miles of the median and lay uh, 10 yards wide with 10 feet wide of grass for 2.5 miles long, and then dig a tree every 30 feet, dig a big hole for a tree to be planted every 30 feet for 2 miles.
Okay, so you've
I
done
believe.
some
Yeah.
hard labor.
I used to come home and my mother would not let me in the house until she sprayed me down from all the mud and dirt and everything. Yeah.
Perfect.
So,
Okay, and then I guess my last question for you is just fishing in Chicago. When are you going to go steelhead fishing in Chicago or in the
uh,
Great Lakes region, I should say?
I did one year. Oh, it was a year uh, between I get elected chief of staff. I'm not elected. I leave. I get elected mayor, but I'm not sworn in. A group of us went to kind of the upper part of not the UP, but the upper part of the glove of Michigan. And I've done the rivers up there.
Ooh,
And I
they're
think
good
that
over there.
it is very, you know what? I don't think a lot of people know that. And I think I just probably ruined it.
No.
But there's a couple tour guides probably happy I'm giving it a shout out, but it's quite incredible up there.
Michigan steelhead
Um,
are the closest to BC steelhead. If you want a good
yeah.
practice, that's the way to do it.
And then, so that's on the list. I'm trying this year or I have a goal the next year, British Columbia, and a friend of mine, there's a particular river, I don't want to mention it, but in Wyoming, I've done in Wyoming. Uh, uh, and I'll tell you funny, the reason I'm smiling when I'm telling you this, there's a Senator Brasso from Wyoming. He's on the Foreign Affairs Committee to be confirmed. You have to get the job of ambassador to Japan, you have to be confirmed by the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee and then the full Senate. I wanted to get his vote. So I could never commit, never commit, never commit. So I sent him a picture of me holding a rainbow, or was it a brown rather, that I caught in Wyoming. I said, if you vote yes, I promise you I'll stay out of Wyoming and I won't fish anymore. So he laughed and that's how I got his vote. But we've gone back and forth. Anyway, fast forward. There's a trip in Wyoming I want to do. That's pretty special. So knock off. But this summer is going to be pretty active. I got 3 separate trips already blocked off for going back to Montana. But I got to tell you, I don't know I like April, May, and a little part of June, and September and October. I'm not crazy about July and August.
It's too hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also,
We
it's Big Fish City in June. I love April, May, June. Fish are dumb.
right?
They're big. It's not too hot. Perfect. Do you hunt?
Yeah.
Do you hunt? Because that would conflict with September.
I do not hunt, although I've decided I want to go do some hunting with some of the fishing guides I go with. They've invited me a couple times, so I'm finally going to say I said yes this last trip, so I'm probably going to do it in September.
Be careful, because once you start going down that route,
Really?
there's no coming back. Depending on what you're hunting for and what your
You
first
like it?
experience is like. Yeah,
You
yeah,
do bow? You do
a
bow hunting?
bow hunt. Yep. It does depend on your first
Hey, bro,
experience.
I don't understand. How did you get into this? Did your mother, father?
Oh
Where's the
God,
road?
no! I've come from
Where's the road
anti.
for April?
My parents are major anti-hunters. They're super against hunting. My dad walked out of the room when I got my firearms license. And admittedly, I've actually never got a deer with a rifle. I've always been a bow
Bow?
hunter. But yeah,
Does your husband fish and hunt?
he doesn't hunt. No. Well, he hunts birds. He doesn't deer hunt either. That's my thing. But I just wanted to be responsible for my own meat. That's how it really started. And then the rest just became an obsession, and this might happen to you, as far as being able to shut down and just concentrate on
Mm,
one thing. Fly fishing is a part of it. Obviously you can meditate and be totally
mhm.
focused on fly fishing, but bow hunting, you have to listen, smell, be quiet. You have to listen and be aware of every single thing around you. I've never found anything that shuts my
I
brain
think
off
the
quite like
last
that.
thing between biking and fishing, I don't think I need another sport with a lot of equipment. I'm
I
done.
reckon you'll give up biking and take up bow hunting.
Okay, then I'm not doing it. I would like biking too much.
Are you going
There's a
elk
great.
hunting? What are you hunting
Well, it's
for?
funny. It's funny you said this. So there's a guide I have in Montana, Craig Matthews, who
Yep.
wants to go. Who gave me some elk meat? I
The
said, okay,
Craig Matthews.
yeah. Craig Matthews is a good friend, great, and he's great help now. He also has a particular place which we didn't get to in the last trip that is a river that is still just all cutthroat. We couldn't get to it because of the snow, but I'm not letting Craig off this season. I'm getting into that river. But anyway, he's promised that we're going to go elk hunting one day.
Oh, well, then it's
Because
game over for you. Once you go elk
okay,
hunting with him, that's it. Say goodbye to your biking. Just hang the bike, hang your helmet up. It's gone.
yeah, the helmet and the metal shoes. You got it. This has
Yeah.
been fun. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you wanted to add before we hang up for the evening?
No, no, I loved it. Great. I've really enjoyed it. I love there. First of all, last question: do you make your own flies?
Of course.
Oh my God, you really are obsessed. I
I'm
do not.
sick. Yeah, I've got a serious problem.
I don't know where you find all the time. There's a guy upriver from me that he, when he's not fishing, is making flies.
Well, I don't tie trout flies. I'm not a glutton for punishment,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well,
but
this has
listen,
been. Thank
if
you
you
so much.
thank you. If you ever get to BC, do let me know.
All right, I'm in. All
Yep,
right,
we're on
thanks,
the
April.
Bulkley. Thanks so much, Rom. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.